When the New Year's Eve I spent alone was over, my aunt and uncle appeared early in the morning. "Vanessa, let's leave this house." They said they had obtained permission to adopt me. I, now their adopted daughter, began to study intensely as a way to repay my aunt and uncle's kindness. 15 years later, as I was making a name for myself on TV, my biological parents reappeared. Then, I decided to execute a certain plan. My name is Vanessa Hansen, and I am 33 years old. I have successfully turned my life around. I have an older sister who was always considered adorable, and was even talked about as potential child actress material in our neighborhood. I should clarify that the person I surpassed was not my sister. Indeed, if I had, my life might have been entirely different. As a child, I was the complete opposite of my pretty sister. My sister was charming, kind-hearted, and smart. She had her persona figured out from a young age, and she was simply perfect. Both my parents and all the adults around adored her. I, on the other hand, was the only one in our family who was chubby. I think our faces looked alike, but my puffy cheeks made me unlike my sister. Not someone everyone liked. I was a shy child with no charm, quite grumpy actually. In elementary school, I was nicknamed Mr. Oppo, a strange name for a girl. But it started when a friend overheard my mother mockingly using it on me. "You are the opposite of your sister," and perhaps that's what they overheard. This nickname must have reached my parents' ears because by the time I was in elementary school, they seemed to have lost interest in me. There was also a gap in our academic performance. My sister was always among the top in her class, whereas I was towards the bottom. While my sister would get snacks at 3 p.m., I was denied any. Because my chubby figure was blamed on the snacks even though I didn't eat a lot. Despite that, my chubby figure never changed. The differences didn't stop at snacks. For various reasons like birthdays or because she looked cute at a recital, my sister would get new clothes and shoes. I would get her hand-me-downs, which were often too small for my chubby figure. Even when I asked my parents for larger clothes, they would end the conversation with, "You should lose weight." Unfortunately, at that time, I didn't know what dieting was. The only treasure I had was a backpack given to me by my grandparents before they passed away. Later, my sister went on to a private junior high school, having passed the entrance exams for a famous school with high academic standards. At that time, she was so pretty that there were even talks of her getting scouted as a model. My parents, especially my mother, would proudly walk her down busy city streets to attract scouts. However, I don't recall ever going out with my mother after a certain age. Once, my sister suggested taking me along, but my mother blatantly made a disgusted face and just responded, "Maybe some other time." This only made my sister's kindness highlight my own misery. Years later, I also entered junior high school, but unlike my sister, I went to a normal public school. From the beginning, my parents had declared that they wouldn't waste money on me. Feeling like my life had been sealed away as a child, I thought this was just how siblings were treated, unaware of the abnormality of our family situation. However, as I reached adolescence, I started to question things. My mother, though a housewife with supposedly plenty of time, made me do all the household chores and shopping, while increasing her outings with friends. Whenever I wanted to go out with friends, my father would guilt me about the laundry. My sister, being kind, would sometimes help me. But after moving on to a prestigious high school, she no longer had time for me. The harshness of my parents only intensified over time. The first incident was when they missed a three-way meeting at school. During my 3 years of junior high, they only attended once, in the first year, and never showed up for the second and third years. As exams approached, my teacher expressed concern. But I brushed it off, saying my parents were just busy with work. Then came the New Year's Eve incident. That year, my parents and sister went back to my mother's hometown for the holidays without me, saying I should stay home and study since I was an exam student. Likely, they found me annoying. That New Year's Eve, I spent alone, watching TV in an unusually quiet house, shedding a few tears as I went to sleep. The next morning, the incessant ringing of the doorbell jolted me awake. Hesitantly, I checked the intercom and was surprised to see my maternal aunt and uncle standing there. I rushed to the door, still disheveled, and asked what was going on. "Vanessa, let's leave this house. We've already got permission from your mother. Come with us." I was shaken by this sudden proposal. I didn't understand what they meant by leaving the house. "Vanessa, if you don't hate us, we would like you to become our child." Of course, I had never thought ill of them. On the contrary, I loved my aunt and uncle. They were always kind and smiled during our New Year gatherings, gifting me popular sweets and cute clothes. They paid attention to me when my parents and sister ignored me. My aunt and uncle, having no children of their own, had always treated me like a daughter. I never imagined receiving such an offer from them. After hearing the full situation, it turned out they had just been with my parents and heard something outrageous from my mother. They planned to make me work part-time during my high school days to fund my sister's university education. My uncle spoke with increased fervor as he explained, "We cannot just ignore this situation. Vanessa, you have a right to do anything in your free time." I was stunned. My parents were trying to rob me of my future for the sake of my sisters. Their absence at the parent-teacher conferences over the years suddenly made sense. My parents, uninterested in me, didn't care about my dreams or aspirations. They only thought of exploiting me. "We're not your biological parents, but we promise to make you happy." My aunt said this with tears in her eyes as she hugged me. It was the first time in my life that I felt truly acknowledged by an adult. This sense of security left no room for doubt. I decided to become the adopted child of my aunt and uncle. 15 years have passed since then. My aunt and uncle raised me as their own daughter. I received abundant love and had many enjoyable experiences. My aunt would find delicious restaurants to take me to on holidays, and my uncle, wanting to share a drink with me, prepared a bottle of wine from the year I was born for my 20th birthday. I have warm memories with them that I never could have had with my biological parents. Initially, I called them by their names, but over time, they became nothing less than my real parents, and I naturally began calling them Mom and Dad. My uncle once shared something he heard from my parents during a visit home. "Vanessa is not going to benefit from going to high school. She's not pretty and not smart. We have a talented eldest daughter, so we really don't need a stupid and flawed daughter like her." My aunt and uncle were furious when they heard this, but my parents showed no remorse. They were serious about making me work part-time. That's when my aunt and uncle decided to discuss adoption. Despite it being New Year's Eve, my aunt, who hadn't been drinking, drove to pick me up. I am truly grateful for that. I wanted to repay my dear parents in some way and become a daughter they could be proud of. With that resolve, I studied hard in high school. It was a rush to get into any school, but once I did, I set goals and refocused. My efforts paid off, and I was admitted to a renowned Ivy League. But getting into university wasn't the end. I wanted my parents to have an easier life in the future, so I continued to study hard, even earning a qualification as a meteorologist while in university, and began appearing on TV. As I pursued my goals, refining myself became enjoyable. I hoped to make my parents proud by being an attractive meteorologist. And after dieting and working out, I came to be known as a beautiful weathercaster. I had the potential to be beautiful since I resembled my sister. Then one day, my biological parents suddenly appeared before me. Vanessa, you've grown up so much. Look how splendid you've become. As I was walking to my car after leaving the TV station, two tired-looking figures appeared before me. Their familiar attitude irked me, but I restrained myself. Their behavior towards me had completely changed. My mother dared to say that her parenting was not wrong, while my father patted my shoulder as if to say, "That's my daughter." Unable to contain my disgust, I glared at them, though they continued speaking nonchalantly. "Since we're here, let's go have a meal at a nice local restaurant." "Yeah, you must be earning a good salary since you're on TV." I felt they were awkwardly trying to ingratiate themselves. Yet their condescending tone from the past would slip through. Instinctively, I knew I should distance myself from them. I needed to make them never want to see me again. Then, I came up with a plan. However, it wasn't time to execute it yet, and a more elaborate opportunity had come to mind. I excused myself, saying I had more work and couldn't join them for dinner today. "Oh, that's disappointing," my mother said with a frown, which I did not miss. I was tempted to shout at them right there, but I prioritized my plan. "There's going to be a small party for my birthday soon, with some people from the TV station. It's a small party, but would it be okay to invite you too? There will be plenty of delicious food, and it'll be fun." Their eyes visibly brightened at my suggestion. "Really? Are actors and such coming because it's a TV station?" "Oh, homie, my mother," I said with a laugh as they got excited, thinking all TV personalities are actors or celebrities. In reality, the party was mainly for meteorologists. Most attendees would be from newspapers and TV stations, with the fanciest guests being announcers and MCs. I casually ignored their eager voices, took their contact information, and left with a promise to reach out again. "I'll send you the details for the birthday party." 1 month later, the birthday party took place as planned. Though it was a small party, nearly 100 people gathered. My parents arrived, strutting proudly as if they were showing off their successful daughter. But to me, they were just an embarrassment. Despite my disdain, I had to complete my plan. I greeted them with a smile. "Thank you for coming, Mom and Dad. I have a special message for you two today," I said as I took their hands. They looked pleased but were restless, probably looking for celebrities. They whispered to each other, "Isn't that person from that TV show?" Then, I began my speech on stage. After the customary greetings and some playful heckling from the audience, which I responded to with jokes, I turned to my parents. "Today, my parents are also here." I indicated towards my parents, and the lighting technician, catching the cue, spotlighted them. "Those are my parents, who despite abandoning me during my teenage years, have come crawling back now that they've seen me on television." The room buzzed with murmurs at my words. I had hardly spoken to anyone but close friends about my past. "Vanessa, what are you saying?" My mother stood up, while my father looked on, stunned. I shared about the discrimination I faced as a child and my parents' indifference. I talked about how I was the only one not given snacks, how I was almost solely responsible for household chores, and how my aunt and uncle, furious upon learning that my parents intended to make me work for the sake of my sister, adopted me. I am cheerful and lively today thanks to my aunt and uncle. They are not here today, but I am deeply grateful to them from the bottom of my heart. I believe everyone here knows me as a cheerful person. That's because my aunt and uncle took me in and continuously showed me love, helping me realize that I was not a worthless child. This allowed me to live confidently and become cheerful. The audience seemed shocked to hear my dark past and started expressing sympathy and condemning my parents, who shrank under their gaze. Mr. Reed from Daily Information, you're here, aren't you? Please include everything, my story and photos, in an article. At my request, as a birthday gift. A journalist friend from a magazine I frequently collaborate with, who had already been taking photos of my parents, responded from the stage. No. Stop it, don't take pictures. My parents panicked, covering their faces. Don't run away. Face yourself properly. I shouted at them. When I was little, you forced me to do this and that, and wouldn't listen when I asked you to stop. It's not fair for you to make me do things and then refuse to endure the same. Tears welled up in my mother's eyes as I rebuked them. I'm sorry. Please, no pictures. Do you want to shame your mother and father? Vanessa, you wouldn't like it if your parents were embarrassed, right? Even now, my parents were trying to garner sympathy. However, I didn't even consider these two as my parents anymore. After abandoning everything a parent should be. What right do you have to feel embarrassed now? It would have been better if you knew this shame when I was a child. Honestly, I was embarrassed too. Embarrassed that these people were my parents. I wished I could disappear into a hole. But this was like a ceremony of closure for me. By severing ties with them completely, I felt like I could truly claim my own life, carrying the greatest treasure of gratitude for my aunt and uncle. Before I knew it, I found myself crying. Observing this, some attendees forcibly escorted my parents out of the venue. It's finally over, truly this time. With a sense of accomplishment and overflowing gratitude towards my aunt and uncle, I felt proud of how much I had grown. Tears blurred my vision, but I felt incredibly refreshed. Later, when the magazine asked if I really wanted to go through with publishing my story, I confirmed without hesitation. The response was greater than anticipated. And while some worried it would tarnish my image, the articles were generally favorable, telling the story of a girl who turned her life around and found her true self by cutting off toxic parents. Meanwhile, my biological parents, following the publication, were seen with disdain by their community and moved away as if fleeing. My father had to quit his job due to the rumors, and they were scraping by, my sister informed me. Even after being adopted, my sister kept in contact, visiting me at my aunt and uncle's home and supporting my decision to be adopted. Knowing my childhood hardships, I later learned that my sister too suffered from our parents' overbearing nature. Triggered by the publication of my story, she distanced herself from them and is now almost completely estranged. 3 years have passed since then. Mr. Reed, who understood my situation and helped publish the article, has become my husband. We are blessed with 2 children and have built a joyful family. Like the unconditional love my aunt and uncle showed me, I pour equal love into my children, hoping to raise them to be empathetic like my sister. who always watched over me from afar. Yet, I have one more thing to do, to repay my aunt and uncle. This year, as usual, I gifted them a trip for their anniversary. We all went to Florida, my husband, children, aunt, and uncle. They say I shouldn't fuss as I have my own family now. But I do it to see their happy faces. It's more for my pleasure than a repayment. Don't take away my fun, I joke, already planning our next destination. Perhaps a trip abroad. It seems the joys of our family will never cease.